The fifth comic for the Batman Fortnite 0 Point series has just released a few hours ago, and the story is getting absolutely crazy leading up to the last issue, which drops July 5th, I believe. In this video, we are going to cover everything that does happen in this comic issue, as well as give a few explanations about everything that is going on within the comics. If you guys are into Fortnite lore as well as the storyline, this will be a very interesting video for you. And soon I will also have uploaded on the channel a video covering comic issues 1 to 4, so stay tuned for that as well. First, before we get into this, if you guys are new to the channel, definitely recommend subscribing, as well as a like on this video would be appreciated. So let's get right into things. In case you needed a recap, we did leave off on the last comic having just entered into the IO headquarter bunkers, and we learned that there is a traitor among us as somebody ended up going and killing Fishstick. So this comic starts off with Magnus, Dark Voyager, Deathstroke, Renegade Raider, Bandolette, and Bonehead all being attacked in a hallway by IO guards. But before any reinforcements for the IO guards could show up, Batman and Catwoman end up showing up and taking out most of the guards. At one point, Magnus ends up killing one of the guards, which Batman gets really annoyed by and says, hey, this is not the loop. We're not actually in the loop anymore. Here, when that happens, you're actually murdering somebody. Don't be doing that. But after everybody is done fighting, Batman ends up taking off one of the masks of the IO guards, and it reveals a snapshot of Jonesy. And this really confuses Batman, and Batman does say that he recognizes this person, but he's not sure why this person's out here already, as he had seen the person right before he escaped the loop. And what confuses Batman the most is that the person is acting like they've been fighting in sync for years on the outside, instead of just coming out of the loop and being all disoriented like everybody else was. And while it's not explained in the comics for this, but we do know with a lot of the Fortnite lore that we already have so far, this is pointing at, more than likely, whenever a copy of somebody or one of the snapshots of somebody ends up escaping the loop, it almost seems like they end up using them. Maybe it's specifically just with Jonesy, as it seems like Jonesy has a lot of different snapshots of himself within the loop. Maybe they're building kind of an army of the Jonesy clones. Who actually knows? We don't have too much information on that right now, but this is something really big to note in terms of the Fortnite storyline long term, so I'm glad that this was in the comics here. Anyways, the regrouped gang ends up heading further into the facility, and as they are walking and talking, they bring up Fishstick being murdered. Deathstroke, interestingly enough, at this point says he probably ran into some guard. I don't know if this is some foreshadowing or not, but we'll see in the later half of this video. Moving on, the gang ends up walking further into the facility, and they enter a huge room which looks to be a meeting or war room. It has a big table in the middle, which kind of reminds me of the Chapter 2 Season 2 story trailer table where they had Midas and all of the people working with him sitting at the table and planning things. And then all around them within this huge room, there's a bunch of different glass panels, and they have a bunch of different artifacts all around them. A lot of these artifacts are basically different things relating to the 0 Point and various events that have happened. There's also different notes around the room, and Batman goes and reads one which says something about the place from which all realities sprang. They call it the 0 Point. He also sees a grand plan to bring order to everything, hinting that the IO didn't create the 0 Point but are trying to use it. And it was also interesting to note that there was a star chart with a bunch of stars and planets that were overlapping. Now this is also a really big piece of news for the Fortnite storyline, as they're pretty much telling us that the 0 Point itself is where everything came from and the ultimate power is from it, which we kind of already knew that there was ultimate power with it, seeing as everything that's happened with it across all of the Fortnite seasons. But it's really neat that they're almost making it seem like everything came from the 0 Point itself. Moving on, the group ends up trying to evade the guards that they were trying to run from earlier, as the guards were slowly catching up to them, and they end up getting cornered in a hallway where there are guards on one side of the hallway and guards on the other side of the hallway. In this situation, Deathstroke ends up telling Batman that he should use his liquid nitrogen capsules, and as Batman throws them, Deathstroke uses his weapons to blast the capsules, and it ends up creating a huge cave-in at that part of the hallway, which blocks off one of the entrances, so the guards are now only coming at them from one side, and they kind of end up trapping themselves by doing this, but it didn't matter as they now are not cornered by guards on two different sides, so they ended up taking out all of the remaining guards from the side that wasn't caved in, and then they continued to go further deeper into the facility, and finally they came into the giant room which we saw in the season 5 trailer, where the 0 point used to be held underneath in the IO facility. Now instead of the 0 point being there or just a giant hole, we can actually see that the spire goes all the way deep underground, all the way to the point where we seen Jonesy even, which that is pretty crazy. I didn't think the spire went all the way underground like that. I thought the spire was just above ground. And it was actually explained to us here where all of those panels that we seen going around in a circle, those pulled energy from the 0 point itself to power up all the terminals that were in there. And it was hinted that once the 0 point stopped actually giving off energy and it turned into the spire, all of the terminals and everything else down there lost power as they actually used the 0 point for the power. At this point, Voyager ended up running into the 0 point, which people did try to stop him, but he was just too excited to get back to his homeworld. Guess what? That's not how it works. Voyager ended up getting split into dozens of pieces and sent to a ton of different realities, and it was explained to us that the 0 point cycles through countless of realities per second, so without using any other means to actually try to control it, if you go and touch the 0 point, you're pretty much gonna die. So rest in peace, Voyager. He escaped the loop only to be turned into cheese. At this point, Batman comes up with a plan to use the multiversal energy contained within all of the characters themselves to try to create a pathway using the 0 point to get to their homeworld. So essentially, it is explaining that within ourselves, we all contain a certain amount of energy that relates to the world that we come from. So in theory, it would be possible to try and use some of that energy to pinpoint a location with the 0 point, so that way it doesn't just cycle through hundreds of realities per second. You can pinpoint specifically your reality using your energy. And this is what Batman does indeed set up, and it successfully ends up working as well. He sends Renegade Raider back to her homeworld, and she was actually the first person to volunteer. As soon as Batman set up this contraption, Renegade Raider was just like, nope, I'm going. I've waited 4 years. I've been out of the loop for 4 years. I need to get out of here. I need to go home. She just takes off running, goes through, gets back to her homeworld. It's at this point that Batman ends up confronting Deathstroke, saying that he was the one who killed Fishstick, and he knows that he is the traitor, along with the energy left on Fishstick's body matched what the energy from his weapon would end up doing. Batman also points out that Deathstroke remembered his nitrogen capsules, which Batman has never used around him since he ended up getting there, which points to Deathstroke being the traitor, having that device that we found in the last comic allowing people to go into the loop without actually being affected by it and being in it, and that they must have known each other from their homeworld in order for Deathstroke to have those memories of what devices Batman has on him and how to use them. It is at this point where everybody is trying to then go against Deathstroke, and Bandolette for some reason teams up with them, and there's another fight, but this time once again, just like Deathstroke in the comics has done multiple times already, he ends up surrendering, which leaves Bandolette really annoyed, as Bandolette ends up telling him, you got me all worked up and then you just stop. At this point, they continue to send everybody in the group back to their homeworlds, starting with Bandolette, then with Bonehead, then with Magnus. So now it's only 3 left, Deathstroke, Catwoman, and Batman being the only ones left in that room. It is at this point that Batman points out that they would potentially have to have one person stay behind to operate the device to open up the pathway to their homeworld, so essentially only 2 would be able to escape. However, Batman theorizes that because they are all from the same homeworld, there should be enough energy from all 3 of them in order to open up a pathway that would last long enough so they could all escape together. As soon as Batman starts to actually work on this and get their own homeworld portal set up, Deathstroke breaks free and once again betrays them for the 3rd time now, and runs and reveals that he has the same device Jonesy was using in the Season 5 event, and uses that to pinpoint his own portal back to his homeworld, and leaves without Batman and Catwoman Catwoman, who are just left in the room absolutely shocked. And that is where the comic ends off. There still is one more comic to go after this, which is the finale, and that drops in sometime in July. I'll be also doing a video covering that as well. And like I said at the beginning of this video, if you guys have not kept up with any of the comics and you guys are all confused, don't worry. I do have another video that's going to be dropping very soon covering issues 1 to 4 all in one video. So with that video and this video, you'll be completely caught up on the comic story. And I gotta say, the comics so far have been very enjoyable. I've never read comics before or ever gotten into them, but this was quite the experience to get into with them. And the Fortnite story and lore so far has been absolutely amazing. The artwork itself has been amazing. I'm actually a pretty big Batman fan, so throwing that into the mix too, I gotta say I'm absolutely loving this. There really hasn't been a whole lot in the past couple of years for Fortnite where we've gotten just big story drops like this, so I'm all for it. I believe it was leaked out previously that the last comic is going to involve Harley Quinn, so I'm assuming, I'm gonna put out the theory right now, if that is the case, more than likely, since they probably needed 3 people in order to get the amount of energy they needed to open up that portal so they could all escape, I'm assuming they're gonna go and find Harley Quinn and try to convince her to escape the loop, go with them, so that way they have enough energy in order to actually create their homeworld portal and they can escape and then go and take out Deathstroke or do whatever they need to do once they actually do reach their homeworld. I'm not too sure, but that's my theory right now. Let me know your guys' thoughts on the whole comic storyline so far, along with where the Fortnite storyline is going, if you guys are enjoying it, if you guys think they should take another direction, or just your total thoughts on everything that's happened thus far. This has been the Walkthrough King, and we'll see you guys at the next video. Peace!